So we're putting in a couple switches, 3 switches to be exact, to power the lights that go outside the doors. For those who don't remember, who I've never seen, we have a 3 conductor line that it is here. And it's really, they call it a 2 conductor line. So this is a 14-2. We have a hot wire, we have a ground wire, and we have a neutral or return wire. Okay? So when we come up to these, I'm going to draw these up here. Our switch, and this is our light switch right here. So this is the light switch, which is what that is there. So it has 2 screws on the side, 2 gold screws that you see, and then it has that green screw here. So all a switch does is either allow, there's a wire that comes through here, and it either allows them to touch or it prevents the 2 from touching. So here it goes over to it and touches it, or comes away from it. If it's away from it, current can't flow through. So my power comes up, and then my power goes off to the light. Okay? So all the switch does is just holding that, either allowing it to go through and conduct it, or to put an open in the circuit so that it can't conduct it. The ground screw is what happens if one of these wires came in contact with something else and made the box hot, the metal box that we're using here, made it hot. It would ground out, and I'm going to show you where that is in the house in just a second here. That's a safety thing that they didn't always have. I mean, this ground screw on this switch here wasn't always there. It didn't always happen that way. Now, so we see our hot goes here, and then the hot is either allowed to go through the light or stopped from going through the light. The ground is always going to be there, and the ground also goes up to the light then as well. The one thing that we don't have drawn here is that brown one, which is our white one over here, which is going to be our neutral, or return. So the current goes up through to the light. The brown, one brown goes up to the light. The brown here gets nutted. A wire nut. So this brown from this wire gets nutted to that one. The hot goes to the screw. The other one comes from the other screw and goes across. The ground comes to the screw and then goes up to the light also. So what is that ground all about? Let's go take a look. On the house that I have here, the shop that I have, we had our panel that had that big 2-inch gray PVC wire that came from it. And that is housing this. This is our service cable right here, okay? And then we have this black thing coming from the box here. And that black thing comes down and is clamped to a copper rod here. And then from that copper rod, we have the wire that extends over, and it goes over to a second copper rod. So that's our ground. That's what is making sure everything in here is going back to the right place after it's been used, the flow of current. It gives it a place to ground out. So that's what our ground is, and this is our box here that I have. The service comes up from the tower there, or from the telephone pole. What we see on telephone poles, like right there, are small transformers that just go ahead and change the electric to 120. But anyways, so now we have the ground. So let's go in. I'm just going to show you quickly what I intend to do with this switch to get this thing to work right, to get these all to work. Now this is a tentative plan, because I'll be very honest with you. The last electric that I did was I ran all the electric for my machines in here. And number one, I told you before, I'd never done this before, meaning that I had never worked with metal clad wiring. So I want to get a metal clad wire cutter, which cuts the outside sheathing and leaves the inside nice. And that's not really necessary, but this is educational. I'm trying to show you guys some things. And very honestly, I'm trying to learn some things myself as well. So that wire right there just goes out to where the light's going to be, and it's just sitting in here. So we have to grab a hot, and we're going to run that from the panel. We're going to run the hot over, up, through to this junction box here. And that hot is going to supply a switch to the outside. So right now, these 2 switches are 3-way switches, meaning that this switch and that switch are the same ones. So I can turn it off here, and then I can go over here and turn it back on. So it's a three-way switch, meaning that it communicates with each other to be able to do that. Turn them both off, turn them both on again. So I have this connected to an electrical conduit. It's called an EMT. And it goes up to a junction box up at the top there. I don't want to have to put another receptacle box or another switch box right here to power those lights out there on my porch. I don't want to have to do that. So I'm going to do a switch over a switch, meaning that there's going to be two switches that sit kind of horizontally in here, then there's going to be a switch over on the side. The two switches that sit horizontally are going to be three-way switches. We never got the three-way switches. We never talked about them. Three-way switches have two wires on that, two screws on that side, and a screw on that side, and they communicate with each other. So they have a red wire in there also, which you see. That red wire communicates with their side and allows the two things to talk to one another. There are a lot of wires in there, and you can probably see back there there's a lot of wires in there for this box. I'm going to be adding wires to that, so I also want to be able to subtract some. So we saw in that illustration that I showed you that our neutral wire just gets tied together. So our neutral wire doesn't even have to be right here next to our switches. So the white wires that you see down there that are taped, you see orange tape on those, I'm going to take those white wires and I'm going to nut them together up here into this junction box. You can see that this junction box has Romex, that I stopped the Romex and I brought it down into the EMT. Whenever you put wire into a conduit like this, you get concerned about heat inside the conduit in there. You can see my ground wire there too. It's turned around, that ground screw. We get concerned about the heat, so we take it out of the Romex sheathing and put it into the conduit by itself, so it's able to dissipate heat more readily. Anyhow, I am going to have more white wires in here that are nutted together. I'm also going to have this MC wire going into this. So my MC wire is going to have to come over and have a 90-degree angle touched up to into the top there. So that's something else I have to buy. One thing that is always a problem with me when I do electrical or when I do plumbing work is that I always forget to buy something, you know? So I'm using this week today just kind of formulating a plan in my head of how I'm going to do this, because I'm interrupting existing services here and trying to put it into how I want it to be in the future. And it takes thought. And I've actually also talked to a friend of mine who is a union electrician in New Jersey, and I mean, very briefly, just asked him what he thought about it, how I should pick up the power, if I should pull it from the box up there, or if I should run a new line for it. And so it still may change with that. I'm not sure that if I want to take his advice or not. But there is a lot with electrical. There's a lot of different items on here, and hopefully next week I will show them to you. The one issue is I don't want to be going to Lowe's 4 times. And very honestly, if this was a normal time period and we didn't have a coronavirus, that's exactly what I would be doing. I'd forget something, I'd go back and get it. I'd forget something, I'd go back and get it. I'd forget something, go back and get it. I don't want to do that. I want to go into Lowe's once. I want to spend a half hour in there getting all the things that I need, and I don't want to go back there. So that is the game plan. So I am going to make sure I have a list. I'll make sure it's all fully concocted this coming weekend. And I will go there probably on a Monday morning, and then we'll talk about this next week. And we'll try some other things too, just to make sure that you guys are seeing exactly what I'm doing here and seeing what kind of things go into this. Trust me though, with plumbing and electrical, everyone has to go back out and buy more things. Professional plumbers, they have trucks that have all the parts in their truck that they can use from. And electricians have the same thing, that they can grab these items from. So I don't have that luxury, and I also am not as accustomed to doing this type of work as they are. So bear with me. I do want to make this more interesting to you guys. So again, what we're doing is we're putting a light outside this door here. We're putting a light outside this door here. And we're putting a light outside the other front door. So we have to find where we're going to be getting our power from, and also how we're going to be switching it. This one right here, I have a switch for this room. So with this one, I'll probably do this switch, and then I'll have a switch over an outlet, and use a switch here for doing this light out here. Okay? All right, guys. I'll talk to you next week.